Hi, welcome to another Witch Doctors How To. Today we're going to show you something that we get asked all the time. How do you install an Avon heated grip on a Vision? There's no real easy way to do it, and actually there isn't an easy way. It's a really good grip. They come in all the different styles, but when it comes to wiring them up, there is no plug and play. You have to wire them in, but we're going to show you how easy we've done it. We've done a couple changes with these, and it's only something you can get at Witch Doctors. It's not, if you bought them from Avon, you won't be able to do this. This is something that we've done exclusively at Witch Doctors to make this job easy. So we're going to show you how. It's not real difficult. You got to get into a little bit of wiring, and I know you guys are nervous about wiring and cutting wiring and splicing wiring and all that. So we're going to show you. It's not hard with what we got figured out. It probably take an hour or two to do it, but you're going to get a really good grip. The button that they give you has 4 heat settings, so it's a little bit better than what Victory has, just the high and the low. This has all the settings. So we're going to show you how to do this. So come on over to the bike and let's see how we do it. Okay, the first thing you want to do is get your grips off. Now, on this particular bike, we are in the process of putting our handlebars on it. So it's going to be a little different than when you're doing a stock handlebar. The idea is still the same, but I can't do certain things, but I'm still going to show you. So the first thing you're going to have is out here on the end. This bike has an aftermarket handlebar end. On your stock handlebar end, you have a screw in the end. You have to unscrew that, and this part here, the handlebar end, will come off. So I can't do it on this one, but like I said, on stock, you're going to unscrew your handlebar end, take this off. That's the first thing you're going to do. And you're going to do that on both sides. It's the same. Now again, something that I have kind of set up here, but the grips, most bikes, guys cut a razor blade and cut that grip off and take it off or twist it off. On these bikes, you have a little screw down in there. Now, this is one of those things where I can't put that screw in because we're not going to use these grips. But it's a Torx head. It's the star head. If you look at that, it's the star head. It's not an Allen and it's not a Phillips. This size happens to be a T15 is what they call it. So what you're going to want to do is pull the rubber back, and there's 2 screws in there. So you're going to pull the rubber back, take your driver, and just unscrew that. Okay, so I already have them unscrewed here, but you're going to unscrew that, and there's one 180 degrees from that one. So you can see it there. I'll spin it, but you just pull that rubber back, and you'll be able to get to the screw. So don't be prying on it and everything until you do that. So that's the first thing. Once you do that, your grip will move right off. So if your Vision doesn't have heated grips, you'd be set. You would just take that grip off and put the new grip on. If you have heated grips and you're switching over to the Avon style, we have to disconnect this wire here. Okay? That wire runs down underneath your center console and plugs in. So the way you take your console out, it's actually pretty easy. First thing you want to do is grab your gauge panel, and I just kind of do this quick. I have other videos on how to do this, but you just kind of pull it, pull your bezel, and pull it even. That'll pull off. You got 2 bolts up here. Those happen to be 6mm Allen. Because what we need to do, we need to get the center console out of the way so you can see where the wires go. Okay, you want to take your key out. That's the next thing. Now, you're going to do your panel right in front of you here. This easy way, you can open up your glove compartment, just reach in here and pull that up. There's nothing fancy to it. It just pulls in. It's got the push pins that go in the fittings. When you pop it back on, you just press it back down. So that's easy enough. That'll expose the 2 bolts back here. These are 10mm. Now the one you're going to think, oh, it's off, I'm going to start prying. You can't pry yet. You have one down inside here. You have to get that screw out. That's a hidden one that everybody forgets about, and they don't know why that's not coming off. That's why, because that's still attached. Okay, so that will make your console come out. Okay, now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you underneath here how to get some of these connectors off. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to label stuff with some tape. And you can see this guy, he's already labeled. Okay, but you want to label these switches and where they go, so when you disconnect them you can put them back together. Like I say, you can see we've already labeled them. So just take some tape and write on there whatever you want to write so that you understand it. You want to just take all the switches, whatever switches you have. Some bikes have accessories up there that you installed yourself. You're going to have to disconnect that because you want to get this panel off of the bike. So disconnect all your wiring. Okay, and that will get your panel out from under the console. Now what we're going to do, the other reason we're going to do is we're going to mount that switch right here. The switch for the grip, the different heat settings, we're going to mount that right there. Now you might say why? Well, the part that Avon gives you fits on a 1-inch bar. It doesn't fit out here on this thick bar. So there's no way to clamp it. So what we do is we actually make it so that it can sit flat on that panel. That way it's out of the way. It's not in your way and you can do what you want. Now the one thing you want to do, you don't have to put it back here. You can put it in different spots. So it's really wherever you want to put it, you can do it. This guy has a Garmin mount here. You can mount it there. One thing you got to do is before you do all that, make sure what's underneath. So if you have something underneath, you know, your radio and your controls, you obviously can't put it there. So you have to make sure what you have underneath, something's not in the way. You don't have wiring or something. So that's basically that. So we're just going to set the console aside. Now it's real simple. You're just going to follow this wire, your heated grip wire. You're going to follow it down and it happens to be right here. All you're going to do to get this apart is this little lever right here, this little tab, just push it down and pull it apart. And you can see when you put it back together, you would just do it the same way if you were doing it. Just put it together and you'll see it click. So just push that down and do that. That's going to take your wiring out. Now some of it might be in zip tied onto here, whatever, you're going to have to take it apart. But that's all there is. So you do that and your grip comes right off. If you want to reuse it, it's still in good shape. You don't have to cut any wires. You don't have to do anything. So when you're in here right now, what you're going to want to do is just do the other side. So you're going to follow the wire down. And right here is like where we have a zip tie. So we're going to have to cut that zip tie to get that wiring out. And when you cut zip ties, make sure you only cut the tie and not the wire. Because a lot of times guys get going crazy and they start doing it and they actually cut into the wiring harness. Be real careful that you just cut the zip tie and not the harness. Now this has more wires here, so we got to take that zip tie as well. So that will get your other heated grip wire off. So that gets your grip wire off. So now what we're going to do, we're going to come around to the other side and we're going to show you how to do the throttle. This is pretty intimidating for most people because you have to mess with the throttle cables, you have to mess with your switches, you have to do a lot of stuff. So we're going to show you it's not that big a deal, you can do it pretty easy. Okay, so what I recommend here is put a towel on the fairing here so when you take this all apart you don't accidentally scratch it. What we have to do is we have to take the brake reservoir off to be able to get some of these bolts, and you'll see what we're doing. This comes off real easy. It's just 2 bolts underneath. They're 4mm Allen. So you just want to unscrew those. Now you want to hang on to this. When you take this bolt out, the clamp's gonna kind of drop down. So that's why you don't want it to fall and hit your paint. So once you get those bolts out, this will just come right apart. You can slide that stuff right apart. Now, it's up to you if you want to disconnect these 2 wires. They just pull off. It's no big deal. I'm not going to do it, but I'm just going to set this down to the side. But if you want to lay it out of the way better, you can. So set that down. Now, what we want to get to is these 2 screws here. We need to get this little switch housing out of the way because we can't get to the bolts. So they're just Phillips screws. Nothing falls apart. You're just taking, just take those screws off. Now this will be loose. Now you got to be kind of careful because your wiring's through there. So what you do is just kind of swivel that out of the way and twist that up. You don't have to disconnect anything else. Just twist that up so now you can get to the screws underneath. Now you want to take your screws out. And again, nothing's going to fall out. No ball bearings, no springs, nothing. This is just a cover on here. And you can see once I get that screw loose, this is all loose now. And one thing you want to pay attention to is the screws are different lengths, okay? So just so you know, when you put it back together, the shorter screw goes in the back, the longer screw goes towards, I guess if you're looking on the bike, the shorter screw goes towards the front of the bike, the longer screw goes towards the back of the bike. So that's going to allow you to get your cover off. And you don't have to take everything apart. You want to get your cover off, and I'll try to swivel this here so you can see it. But what we have to do, we have to get these cables out of the throttle here, okay? Now, this isn't hard, but you want to pay attention. You have 1 cable going on one side and 1 cable going on the other side. Couple different ways you can do it. Sometimes you can get this, you'll have enough slack. Let me get a little screwdriver. Sometimes you have enough slack here that you can get this off. If you don't, these adjusters right here, you're just going to spin those back and forth until you get some slop. This one looks like it's probably got enough slop. You just need to kind of sometimes if you have a helper, it would help. There we go. That you can help hold some of this. You just kind of get that and pull that out. You got that little barrel on the end of the cable. It just goes in there. So you want to pull that one out. Now the other one kind of works the same. You can do the same thing. Just rotate your throttle forward and it'll give you the slack and it'll come right off. Now the only thing you really want to pay attention is that you don't cross these up. You don't want to put them back on and have this one on the front part and this one on the back part. So as long as you don't go tearing into doing crazy stuff, you'll be okay. Just kind of pull that down a little bit, unhook it out of this boss goes inside there. Just pull that out and you're all set. Grip comes right off. So that's all there is to getting the grips off. Now we'll come back and we'll show you how to install the grips. Okay, so what we're going to do, you want to make sure you clean your grip, or clean your bar really good. If you got any oil, grease, anything, the old glue, anything on there, make sure you clean that up good. I use, if you watch most of my videos, I use brake clean, spray some brake clean on a rag, wipe that off. Now in the kit with the Avon stuff, what they give you is they give you some tape like stuff, a little packet of solution, and a Q-tip. So what you want to do, you want to peel the tape side off. It's like a double side sort of tape. You want to peel that off and you want to stick that on your handlebar. Okay, now this other side that you see here is also a double side. So what you want to do is you want to get that and peel that up. Okay, so that's a sticky side now. You want to take some of the solution, open the little pack up, and they tell you to squirt some on a Q-tip and kind of squirt it on. And rub it around on there. And then you also want to put some down in here. Now I already kind of squirted some in there, but kind of wipe some in there. And then you want to put your grip on. You want to go real easy. You don't want to tear that tape. So get that where you want it to be. Now make sure when you do put this on here, you rotate that so the wiring, you know, is kind of on the bottom part. You don't want the wiring coming out this way. You want the wiring on the bottom so you can pull it like that, and then we can zip tie it up right here and it'll hold it out of the way. Now the other thing these have is a set screw. Now I believe on this one it's a 2mm set screw. So you just want to go, and they got 3 of them, and just tighten those set screws. You don't want to tighten them all or one all the way. Go around and kind of do it even, a little bit on each one. Now what Avon says is let this sit a couple hours for that to set up and dry. Before you go doing anything. This one's a little bit more of a pain. One thing you could do is turn this just a hair one way or the other so that you can tighten this. Or if you had a longer thing, I'm just trying to show everybody how you can do it with different tools. But there. Okay, so that's all there is to that grip. Now you don't want to do anything really with the wires other than just make sure you get them out of the way here, because we have to wire them up into the controller. So just make sure that's up out of the way, and we'll go and do the throttle side next. Okay, so now in the kit, the one thing that confuses everybody is in the kit you get these little collars. Okay, and they give you 2 different ones. Now if you read the directions, the Avon directions, it'll say the one fits a Honda and the other one fits everything else. Well, Victory is everything else. So what you want to do is you need to figure out which one, and they say there's an A and a B on here. Now I have looked to save my life. I cannot find an A and a B on any of these that I have ever done. So what you want to do, I'll just give you this tip. When you set them side by side, you're going to look at these holes. You have one has the holes that are basically the same, and one has a hole and an oblong hole. You're not the oblong hole. You're the other one. Okay? So that's how I tell. So once you do that, this is going to go on this grip just like this. That you just kind of line the teeth up. It only goes on, and it's going to go on like that. Now, here's the next problem. This can go on this way, or you can flip it over and put it on this way. It'll fit on I'll show you. It'll fit on the same. Either way. It goes on that way. You can flip it over. And it'll go on that way. The problem is, when you put this on the wrong way, the throttle will stick. It won't stick like all the way on, but it'll be, you know, it'll go off slow because it's rubbing. Now, here's the catch. And hopefully you can see this. Try to turn it this way. If you look across here, this area here, one side has a little bit of a ledge right here. The other side is pure flat. One side has a little bit of a ledge. That little bit of a ledge, when you put it on the grip, that little bit of a ledge sits on this edge of the grip right here. So what you got to make sure you do is when you put it on, I'm trying to show you here, that little ledge right here is going to go on, and if you can see it, right here it snaps right over that edge. If you don't, it'll, like I said, it'll still fit, but that little bit of a hair difference will make that throttle start to stick and not return real quick. So you want to make sure you do that. Now you say, well, if it's wrong, I can take it back apart. No, you can't, because they give you super glue. You have to super glue this thing on. If you put this on the wrong way and you super glue it, guess what? You buy another set because you can't get it off. So let me super glue this on. I guess I'm not smart enough to figure out how to open the bottle. Wouldn't that be funny if I super glued my fingers to myself right now doing this video? Okay, so you put a little super glue on the teeth. And double check it once again that you do that right, because once you're done, you're done. Okay, so you put that on. If you got any extra, you know, wipe it off. Push it on real good. Double check it. Make sure that flange is right. I've seen guys do this and then the throttle stick and then they're screwed. You can't get this back off. You need to get a new grip. Okay, so we'll give that a few minutes to dry up and then we'll come back and show you how to put it on. Okay, so now that that's nice and dry, all you're going to do is just real simple, slide that on. You don't have to clean anything. You don't have to do anything. You just slide that on. Now, as long as you didn't mess with these cables, they're still going to be in the same spot. And they're actually really hard to get them crossed up. As long as you don't unbolt stuff, you'll be okay. So an easy way is get everything kind of where you want, because I know I've done these before and stuff's hanging here and you get this up there and then you realize the part's not in the right spot, something got in the way. So you want to kind of just get stuff lined up, like everything's going to go like that. So you just want to kind of pull it back apart so you know what's what. Now, what I like to do to hook this back cable on, well, this stuff is all still loose right here. Just take your throttle, line that cable up to wherever you got to do it so it goes on real easy. Hopefully you can see that. You just put it right in the slot and turn the throttle and it goes right in. Now at that same time you want to kind of line this up so that you're putting it in this housing just like that. So if you didn't see that, you just kind of put the cable in, rotate this and put it right in with the housing and everything will be perfect. Now you're just going to do the same thing with this cable. I like to kind of get it caught in there a little bit, kind of helps hold it. Now, if you can hold the housing, and if you can't do it, get somebody to help you. Hold the housing and rotate the throttle back. And hopefully you can see that. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way. Rotate the throttle back and that cable will go right in. I'll get a little screwdriver to push it in. But that barrel will go right in and put the cable right in the little slot that it's made for, and you'll see it, just kind of work it there and it'll go right in. So everything's right together. So the next thing you're going to do is just put this back on where it goes. Okay, now I like to kind of hold it with my hand and make sure everything works, and you can see it snaps back perfect. You don't have to bolt everything up, because if you had something wrong, you don't want to bolt it all up and then figure out, hey, something's wrong, and have to take it apart again. So just give it a try. Everything's working. You can see it snapping back perfect. You're all set. So once you do that, now you want to go back and put your bolts back in. Now if you're remembering what I said, the longer one goes here. And you can turn this, if you kind of hold it together, you can turn it so it's easier for you to work with. Once you get them tight, you can't turn that, but move it so it's easy for you. If you can't get the screw, spin the thing clear up like this so it's easy for you. You know, once again, don't tighten the one up all the way until you have the other one in, and then tighten them up even. Okay, now you don't want to tighten them up completely because you need this space to put your master cylinder or your brake cylinder back in there. So just get them snug so stuff doesn't fall apart. Okay, because you're still going to have to slide these where you want it. So there, that's together. We're going to give it a try. It still works perfect. Clicks back, no problem. So you're going to want to take just everything basically in the reverse order. Take this. You want to kind of rotate it and be careful of your wires there. Get that on. Now these screws, you want to tighten them up even, but you want to tighten these up all the way. You don't want to leave these loose. Now don't go crazy because you can strip them out. You're going into aluminum, so just tighten them up snug. You don't have to go crazy. Once they get tight, you're good. Okay, so you're good there. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put the master cylinder back on, clutch cylinder. So you want to put that on that clamp, just kind of sticks there, you know. If you disconnected your wiring on the switch, make sure you put that back on. Just put that back up there. I like to do the front, or actually the rear bolt, I keep saying front, but the rear bolt here first, just because it's easier. That front one is a little bit harder because you got the cables in the way and the wiring and everything. So I like to kind of put that one in first. It'll help hold everything. Get the bolt here. This is a little bit harder to see, like I say, because of the cables. Now the one thing you might want to do at this point is sit on the bike, because you can adjust this where you want it. You know, if your lever, you want it in a different spot. You don't have a lot of room, but you do have some. So basically you want to keep your master cylinder lid flat, but snug the bolt up. If you leave them a little bit loose, you can still have that adjustment. You know, if you want to take it for a ride and it's not quite right, you can shove it and move it. I know where these have to be, so we're going to tighten them up all the way. And again, don't go crazy on tightening them. Tighten them even. Okay. And that's basically all there is to it. We have the brakes back on, everything's hooked up, your switch is back up. The last thing you're going to want to do is, if you need to adjust this a little bit, tighten it where you want it. Again, you may want the switches in a different spot for how you like, but if you have it halfway tight, you just snug those screws up. Now the one in the back is going to be a little bit harder to get to because you have this bracket on here. But initially when I put it on, I tightened that one pretty good, and I left this one a little bit loose, so once that tightened up, it makes it tight, like it won't move. So you're in good shape. Last thing you want to do, check your throttle, make sure everything works perfect. We're in good shape. You're going to take your wire now and just kind of route your wire down around underneath here, just like you did on the other side, on the passenger one, or on the left one. Just take that, because we're going to zip tie it in and we're going to run it down. So we'll come back in a second and we'll show you what to do next. Okay, so one thing I want to show you is, and I forgot to mention it because this one's already pretty good, so people want to know, how do you adjust these? What are these for? Basically, if your throttle's really loose up here, and I have this one set a little bit loose, if this is too loose for you, what you're going to want to do is just turn these. The big one in here is like a lock nut, okay, and the other one is the adjustment screw. So you want to back that lock nut off a little bit, and then just turn this. And it's really a personal preference. You just turn that until you get some of the slop. And I like to kind of do the front one and the back one a little bit. You know, don't just do one all the way. But you do that, you'll see this slop out here go away. So right now, there's very little slop. I know that looks like it's moving, but I'm actually moving the throttle. So if I go really crazy here, and I don't know if you can watch this little screw right here. If you watch that little screw, if I get going really crazy here, see the throttle moving? Can you see that moving? That's actually putting too much. There's no slop at all right now. Okay, so you don't want to go that far. So if you start watching and you see that moving, you're going too far, and that would act like a cruise control going down the road. You know, you'd actually have your throttle stuck on right now. So you do have to be kind of careful with what you do. So you don't want a lot of slop, but you want, you know, to what you like. So you just kind of adjust each one of them. You know, turn the one a little bit, turn the other one a little bit, until it's what you like. Once you get it, you're going to take those little lock nuts and just tighten them up. You don't need pliers, just use your fingers. Tighten them up, and then it takes your slop right out. You're ready to go right on the throttle. So I just wanted to show you that last little tip there I forgot to show you. And that goes, this isn't just for a Vision, this is for any bike. Cross Country, Jackpot, any of them. They have that kind of a throttle setup. That's what you do for that. So basically, that is all you do to install grips. If you have a set that is not heated, you would be all done right now. You wouldn't have to do anything else. You just put the throttle in there. You wouldn't have to mess with the wiring. It's the exact same on all the bikes. But again, if you didn't have heated, you'd be done. Since these are heated, we're going to go to the next step and show you how to start wiring them up. Okay, so we got the center console. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out where do we want to put our switch. Now, like I said in the beginning, you can mount this all different places. We've talked to a lot of Vision owners when we were trying to figure this out, and most of them said right in here was a good place. A couple people said they have a cigarette lighter there to plug in like a heated jacket and stuff like that. If you're one of those guys, you may be able to mount it up here, you may be able to mount it up here. There's different spots you can do it. But basically what we're going to do for this customer is we're going to mount the switch right there. It's out of the way, it's easy to get to, it looks good. So that's what we're going to do. Now, the one thing you might say is, now what am I going to do with my old switch? Well, you can, one, leave it there. It's basically the only thing you can do, but you can use it for other things. If you had fog lights, if you had, you know, any other accessories, you now can have an on and off type button up here that you're not using now, and you could hook it up to something down the road as an accessory. So the one thing we're going to do, we're going to show you how to do it our way, but Avon does give you a little template. So if you wanted to mount this anywhere else, you can use this template. Now we're not going to do it. I'm going to show you something a little bit easier. But for you guys that want to mount it, say up here, if you don't have a garment up here, you could put that right there and you have all your template and everything where your holes go. So they do provide that in the kit for you. So what we're going to do, we're going to mount it down here. So we're going to flip this over. Now we're going to take our switch. And if you see, you have the fins here. If you didn't flip it over and you were guessing, you might hit into those fins. So we're just going to put that, you know, right down in there, wherever you want it. You don't got to be real picky. You know, kind of get it centered in the center of the point here. It's real easy to see. Mark a hole. Just put a mark where those holes are. I use a 1/4 inch drill bit. Now for this, I'm kind of doing it on this chair so you can see it. We're going to put just a block of wood under here. And the one thing I want to do is I want to get a rag and put it on there. So if you're going to do some drilling and you put it on a block of wood, make sure you put something so you don't scratch it up. You don't want to scratch up your paint. So we just have a 1/4 inch bit. We're just going to drill that. Now one thing when drilling holes, once you get down to where the hole's almost through, you want to kind of stop. You don't want to shove it all the way through real hard. You don't want to do this full speed because you don't want to screw up the paint on the other side. So I get the hole basically started and just kind of go easy. Caught the rag, but just go easy. Don't go full speed when you're doing it, because if you shove it through, knock your paint shavings out or your chips. I'm going really easy, that's why it's taking longer here. Normally it would go right through there. Okay, knock your chips out. And if you look on this side, you don't damage anything. You barely even pop through the hole, so you can just kind of break those little tabs off. So that should be basically where your switch is going to go. So what it's going to do is we're going to mount it like right there. Okay, so the last thing you have to do is you have to drill the hole where the wires go. And if you look at the little template, the hole's right in the center here. So that hole is where the wires are going to go through. Now, what you want to do, you want to drill that hole just a little bit bigger. Just for the simple reason, you're going to run wire through there, so you don't want them rubbing on there and cutting into the wire. So I'm going to go up just a couple sizes on the drill bit. You know, you can look at what you want. This is a 25/64, if you don't have that big. But it'll just give you plenty of room. You don't want to go too big. Now, what I like to do is go a little bit on this side. Since it's a big bit, once it starts to grab, it's going to rip through. Flip it over and finish drilling on this side. And just clean that out. Again, if you got those little tabs on there, the little... And the last thing I do I take what they call a countersink bit. You don't have to do this. This is just something I do. You can get a countersink bit at Harbor Freight. You just touch the hole. It just cleans it off. It makes the hole really nice. It gets rid of the jagged edge. And you want to do it on the bottom too. Okay, it just makes the hole a little bit nicer. So now you're basically ready to put your switch through. The one thing you want to do is when you put your wires through the center hole, if that hole's too small, you're going to jag it going through. You know you need to make that hole a little bit bigger. So we're just going to fish the wires down through. And then in the kit, we give you nuts and bolts. Just want to put those down through. We give you a flat washer and a lock washer. You just want to put them on the back. Flat washer goes first, and then the lock washer. And again, don't tighten it up all the way, just get it started. Flat washer first, lock washer next. And that basically mounts your switch. You can kind of adjust it, get it a little bit straighter. That basically mounts your switch there. So you want to look down in here. If your wires are hitting, you don't want to have it there. You want to drill your hole a little bit. You might need to move your hole over a little bit. Whatever. You can make that hole however big you want, and you'll be okay. Once you get all that done, you're going to go and you're going to take a wrench and you're going to tighten all that up, and then we'll show you the next step. Okay, so you're going to want to take your console, and you're going to want to set your console there just so you can have a place to work. Take your wires from the switch we just put in and just kind of hang them somewhere so you can get to them kind of easy, because we're going to start hooking that stuff up. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is in the pack of parts that Avon gives you, you get some zip ties. We're just going to take those zip ties and the wire coming from the grips, just kind of tie that stuff up a little bit. You don't have to completely, clamp it tight all the way. Just kind of get it where they want to get it, so it's basically out of the way. You don't want this hanging down here, so you just want to kind of follow it down. Do the same thing on the other side. Just because you want to know what length of wire you're working with. Not that you really have to cut anything off, but you want to get stuff where it needs to go. Okay, so now we have both ends. Now, just for the sake of the video, I labeled each wire where they connect. Your wires won't have this. It just makes it easier for me when I'm trying to explain this to you, how they go. The directions are pretty good. It's not really a wiring diagram, so you don't have to be afraid of that. But I'll go through it here and show you a little bit easier. In the kit, and I'll kind of do this slow for you. In the kit, you get a little jumper wire. You're going to need that. And you get these little connectors that have like a red dot on them. What these are, you're used to butt connectors and ring terminals and all that. This is just another type. What you do is when you take your wire, you're going to want to put it in there. You don't have to strip the wire off. You're just going to put it in there. On the red ones, there's 3 holes there. You're going to put it in there. You can see, if you flip it over, you can see the wire going in there. Okay? And you see that? So you want to make sure you push it all the way in there. Don't just put it part way or it won't work. You have to push it all the way in there. So what you're going to do, you're going to take a red wire from either grip, doesn't matter. We're going to take our little jumper wire and we're going to put it in there as well. Okay, and again, just look at the back and make sure it's in there. Now, this is where stuff kind of gets confusing. I'm just going to set that aside. You're going to take your white wire from your switch that we just installed in your panel. The white wire goes into that connector as well. So, when you're doing this, one thing you want to make sure is don't have your wire looped on the outside of your handlebar or something like that. Make sure everything is not wrapped around things, because the last thing you want to do is connect this up and then go to bolt it on and realize the wire is on the wrong side of the handlebars, the wire got wrapped around the exhaust pipe, you know, something crazy like that. So what you're going to do, you're going to put that jumper wire in there, and you're going to take the white wire from the switch and push it down in there, and you can see, just make sure they're all in the spot. Now you're going to take pliers and you're going to squish it. You want to make sure that this little red tab is pushed all the way down in, because what that does, it does two things. It pierces the wire. That's why you don't have to strip it. You know, you don't want to go crazy, but give it a couple squeezes. Make sure it's really in there. You want to do that. The other thing is, you'll see a little grease come out. That grease is to protect it from getting wet. Okay, so that's one connector. Excuse me. So we basically have one grip hooked up. Do the same thing on the other grip. And put your wire in. Now, the hard part is your little jumper wire. I'm going to put that in there too. So now what we're really doing here, let's see, that feels like it's in, but it really isn't. We've got to push it a little bit. What we just did by that is we connected both grips to the switch. That's all we've done, is we've just connected both grips to the switch. The last thing we need to do on this is we need to connect this to a hot, to the battery, to the key. We need to connect that somewhere. So what I did is, in the kit, boy, you got to be choking. In the kit, they give you a long wire harness. I just took a little splice out of that harness. That harness is if you wanted to run it to the battery or a different motorcycle, whatever. You don't really need that. So I just took a little snip of that wire out of there, because this is the wire that's going to go to our hot. So you're just going to put that in there too. And again, just smush that little red connector. Make sure they're in there before you smush it. Okay, and you see the grease come out of it. Just wipe that grease off. Again, that's just dielectric grease to make a good connection and keep moisture out. Once you wipe the grease off, you can see it a little bit better. And just make sure, you know, if you got to give it another little squeeze, make sure you get them good. And the directions that Avon gives you really shows you how to do this. It shows you a good picture of what it's supposed to look like. Might be a little easier than what the camera can show you. You want to just pull on them, make sure they're in there good. So basically now we have both grips connected to the switch, like I said, and we have a wire that's going to go to the hot. So let me get my next step and we'll show you that in a second. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the yellow wire coming from the switch, and that's going to go to both black wires on the grips. So it's the same thing. We use the little connector. I'm just going to push those in. Flip it over, make sure everything's pushed in all the way. You can see that they're not. That's why you got to double check. Okay, so they're all pushed in. Smash that down. Wipe the grease off, make sure. Okay, so now that's it. So now we've basically hooked up the switch all the way with the grips. So the next thing you're going to want to do, we need to get power. We need to get this red wire. We need to get power to the switch. So there's a couple ways we can do it. The one way we say, which is a little bit easier, is we're going to go up here and find what they call switched power. That means when you turn your key on, you get power. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can run this down to the battery. You can find a hot anywhere else that you want. The reason we're doing this is if you run this directly to the battery, you have to make sure you shut the grips off. If you don't, you have the chance of killing your battery. So that's why you want it to a switch. As soon as you shut your bike off, it automatically... Okay, so like I say, we need to get switched power. If you look down underneath here, this is your harness that goes to your key. So what you want to do, you want to take a test light. It's a little bit easier with a test light. And the wire on this one is going to be the pink wire down in this corner. Now you got to check this yourself because I don't know the wiring diagrams for all the bikes. But you want to put that down in there, turn your key on to the run spot. And you want to poke down in there. You don't want to do it real hard. See the light come on? That means we got power there. Now when I shut the key off, the light goes out. So that means that is switched power. When I turn the switch on, the key, that means I got power. It kind of jiggled out of there. But that's what that is, if I could get it in there. This is a little bit harder to do. That's why you need a test light to get it in there. There you go. So you want to make sure that's in there. See if I jiggle it, it comes out, but it's on. So there, you can see it goes off. So that's what we're trying to do. So what we want to do, and you can test each wire, but if yours is different than this. But what you want to do is you want to make sure you get a wire that goes off when you do the key. So what we're going to do, we're going to get that wire, and on this one it's the pink wire. And we're going to use our connector. Okay, so the connector, the wire goes in there, the solid wire goes in there, and we're going to stick our other end of our wire in the other end. Now this has a little on there. You can cut that off. If you have a little wire hanging out, you can cut it off. You don't need to have that on there. So you want to get this on. Kind of hard to get your hands down in there, but I'm going to get that on. And take this and slide it through the other end. It'll only go one way. So you want to slide it in there and make sure you push it in all the way. Then you want to get your pliers and you want to smush that down. Okay, you want to make sure that metal, I kind of missed there a little bit. It's kind of hard to get in there. You want to make sure you clamp that metal. There we go. You see how it went flat? You want to make sure you get that flat. And then this top just folds over. Okay? So now everything should be hooked up. So we're going to put a ring terminal on. If you don't know what a ring terminal is, this is it. So you just want to make sure you get your wire. Slide it in there. Now, you really should have special crimper pliers for this. You can do it with regular pliers, it'll work, but crimper pliers work better. Just want to make sure you smash that on there, pull it, make sure it's good, and that's all you have to do. It doesn't have to be anything fancy at all. So we want to just take, we're going to go to one of these other bolts here. And they're just a 10mm bolt. And again, like I say, you can go, there's a bunch of spots down here where you could tie into. So you just want to put the bolt through there. And bolt it back on. So once you've done that, you're basically done. There's nothing more to it. You're just going to go on and you're going to start, like I say, organizing your wires, getting your wires back, you know, so stuff isn't all caught entangled up in other stuff. What you would want to do now at this point, just turn your key on, give them 10-15 minutes, make sure they start heating up, go through your different settings. Make sure that it feels on low setting, that it feels that it's really on a low setting. If you go on a hotter setting, make sure it goes on a hotter setting, and just kind of go that route and see how everything works. Okay, so now we got most of the wire kind of tucked up out of the way here. So what we're going to do, it's kind of easier, and you can kind of do it whichever way works for you. Take this, tuck that stuff in. It's easier for me to hook this. I'm kind of doing it backwards here so you guys can see. But you want to hook the radio stuff up. This is your antenna. It's kind of hard to see with the camera, but it goes up in here. Big connector. It's definitely hard to see when you're holding the camera. There, you'll hear that click, so you know you got it snapped on. If you don't hear that click, you didn't snap it on. And the rest of these wires, got your fog lights, your hazards. Your hazards are here. This is where your heated grips was, so you don't need that anymore. Okay. Now, just be careful when you're putting your wires back on. Like I say, that's the biggest thing, is you got so many wires under here. You don't want to pinch anything off. You want to kind of get stuff tucked underneath. If you need to readjust your wires for your grips, if you need to put some more zip ties on, you know, now's the time when this is still kind of loose, because you can still kind of move stuff around a little bit. Okay, that'll just kind of set back into place. And you've got to check everywhere. I got a wire coming out over here, so you just got to check everywhere. And sometimes that I've done these, you can take a little masking tape or duct tape and tape the wires to the bottom of the panel so when you set it back in, everything's okay. So once you do that, before you get everything done, you want to turn your handlebars. Make sure nothing's pinching when you're turning them, that you don't have anything caught in there. It's a good time to do it now, again, before you get this all bolted back in. Once everything's okay, I always like to just do a double check before you bolt that down. Turn your key on. Make sure your light comes on your grips, that you didn't knock anything apart. Make sure your radio turns on, all your lights, everything's working. You can flip your hazards on and you can see them up on the dash that they're working. Your fog lights, you can do all that just to double check and make sure everything's back on the way it should be. So all you're going to do is just the reverse order of how you took everything apart. Your bolt's going up there. So you can see this is a job that takes a little bit of time, but it's not hard. The benefit of it is, you know, for you guys with the heated grips, is you get a cool looking grip. For one, you get a high quality grip. Avon stuff is top notch. You get to customize your bike, and you get some more settings for the temperature than what you started out with. So there's a lot of benefits to doing this. Again, it's something you can do yourself. The instructions that come with the grips are pretty good. You know, they explain it pretty good. With the video, I think if you get a little bit confused on that wiring, just go back and play the video again and you'll see exactly what to do. Again, the switch, mounting it on the panel like that, that's only through Witchdoctors. If you were to buy Avon grips through Avon, they're not going to come like that. This is our deal. So you get your panel all bolted back in. These just push back in. You got to make sure there's a little metal tab on here. Sometimes that little tab still stays in the hole. So make sure the 4 holes are empty and the tabs are actually on the dash. It's going to put back in, push it, and you're all set. The last thing you got to do is put your panel, your little access panel here on. It just snaps down back in the holes, just like it looks. It's real easy to do. Kind of tuck it in under the seat. Put it on. You're all done. I'll show you the switch again. Just turn the bike on. There's your settings. And the last push, they go off. That's all there is to it. So I hope you guys now take a chance and put your grips on. Thanks for watching.